Welcome to another episode of Iftar on Ahlulbayt TV with me, your host, Tasvira Jessa. Today we're going to be making mince bread in the shape of a fish and followed by a kale salad. Obviously, it can't be that easy, can it? So stay tuned to find out what's our twist on this mince stuffed bread. So before we start binding our dough for our bread, we're going to heat up our pot and we're going to add our tempering, which is our bagar. And it's a very basic bagar. So I'm heating up my pan, and to the pan, I'm going to add in about 2 teaspoons of olive oil. Let that heat up a little bit. So we're gonna put in about a level teaspoon of mustard seeds. Now, when the oil is really hot, these start to pop. So when you do put them in, please be careful because they can sort of splutter onto your face. So I'm going to put it in. My oil's not very hot, so I'm safe. I know I'm okay. If I put the cumin in before the mustard, they'll burn. Okay, so we've put a teaspoon of the mustard seeds, which are starting to sizzle. I've added in a teaspoon of the cumin, and that's sizzling straight away. So if you can see in there, you'll see that. To that, I'm adding less than half a teaspoon, but more than a quarter. You can add more, you can add less, you can add none if you don't want it spicy at all. But obviously, I guess we want to add that robust flavor. So we do like our food to be a little bit spicy, not overpowering that you can't taste what you're eating at all. But remember, it will disguise our secret ingredient in there. Okay, to this, I'm adding 2 red onions. And I've just chopped them quite well, not finely, but they're not very big chunks. And we're putting them in to soften for a couple of minutes. And in with our onions, we're gonna add in some garlic and ginger. I'm sure many of you have heard, it's easy to peel it with a spoon. You can use a knife, but instead of cutting, use a dragging action. So I'm grating about a 2-inch piece, you saw, well, 1.5-inch piece of ginger straight in, and that will cook in. Now I'm using a medium to low heat because I don't want to burn my onions, I just want to soften them. So I don't want them going really brown. I've got 3 cloves of garlic, I think. And before I add them, I'm just going to give it a little mix quickly. And I'm going to grate that straight in. So we put in 3 cloves of garlic. We put in our ginger. Now into our pan, we are adding 1 large green pepper, 1 small red pepper, and all this is adding volume to our dish. We have 2 carrots that have been grated, and I'll show you my grater again. It grates it very finely, so we'll have little chunks that will cook in easily. But with our carrot, onion, and pepper, we're going to add in some cabbage. So I've literally taken a small chunk of a head of cabbage, and I've cut off 2 chunks. So let's use the bigger one first. And all I'm gonna do is with the slicer, I'm taking the cabbage and just running it up and down. And this will give me actually little tiny bits. But if you don't have that, then all you have to do is take your knife. If you don't have any sort of similar chopper, take your knife and like you're cutting an onion. Just go up and down your cabbage and then across. And that way you'll also get little bits. And it goes straight into the pot. There we go. So I'm turning the heat down a bit because I don't want to burn it. I have half a teaspoon of salt. I have a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric. Now this is coriander and cumin, so dana and jiru. Here I've got red chili peppers. You don't have to put that in. If you don't have it, got some shan masala. And I think this is like a karai meat masala. But any masala you've got, you can add that in. If you don't have it, don't worry, don't put it in at all. and that's half a teaspoon of chili powder. Now this chili powder isn't really hot, it's more like a Kashmiri chili powder, which is more color and flavor. So all our spices go in, just like that. We've added our dry seasonings in, and I'm gonna cover it and let it cook down a little bit. And while that's cooking gently on a low heat, we're gonna make a green masala. Okay, so to make our green masala, we're gonna take our coriander. We've got 2 bunches here. So I've literally soaked it in a big bowl of water, drained it, and then put it in a sieve, drained it, and then I put it into my salad spinner. We're gonna take this coriander, put it into the blender, and with that we've got 1 big bell pepper, 1 green one. We've got a handful of green chilies, and all I've done is take the tops off, and I've also got some long mild chilies, and they're just adding flavor to our green masala. So we've put that in, we're gonna blitz it, and we're gonna add a little bit of salt and lemon juice to that as well. Remember, we've put a little bit of olive oil and water just to help, but we don't want it to be really bitty, so we're just gonna let it blitz again. Okay, that's great. I've uncovered our pot, and to that we are going to add in 1 heaped teaspoon of our green masala and a little bit for good measure. Into our pot now, we're gonna add in our corn. This is 1 tin of corn. And we're also going to add in our green onion. So that will cook down now. So we're adding 3 chopped green onions straight in. And then when this finishes cooking, we'll just leave it aside. As you can see, you can't even see the cabbage in this anymore. We're also going to add a little bit of garam masala, because that gives a really nice flavor to our food. So I've got about half a teaspoon of garam masala going in. We forgot to put in our secret ingredient. I've got 4 tins of tuna straight in. Just gonna use the knife to get it out. Okay, so we've got 4 tins in. Mix that in, and our vegetables are pretty much cooked down. We've added our garam masala in. And the last thing we need to do is add a squeeze of lime. But first, before we do that, we're gonna mix in all of our fish completely with the vegetables. And then we'll leave it to cook for a bit, because we want all the water to be absorbed. We don't want any water left in our mixture. Then we'll set this aside to cool. Okay, so we're gonna leave that to cook for a bit, and we're gonna get on with our bread dough. Okay, for our dough, we've got yeast, and I'm gonna add in a teaspoon of the yeast, so a whole full teaspoon. This one we don't have to leave the dough to rise. We'll put the yeast inside, and to the yeast, to help activate it, I'm gonna add in a teaspoon of sugar. That feeds the yeast. And in this mug, I have warm water, so you can see I can put my finger in it. It's not very hot, but the warm water, again, activates the yeast. So about half a mug, and we're going to leave that for about 10 minutes, and you'll see it grow. So while we're gonna leave this aside here, we're going to go back to our mixture, which has been cooking away. Oh, you can smell coming out when I lift that lid. I am turning it right down because the water has evaporated, which means it is done. I'm going to squeeze in just a little bit of lemon. Okay, we're gonna mix that in. And to this, we're gonna add some freshly chopped coriander. And we're gonna take it off the hob, and we're gonna leave it in a place to cool. So we need our fresh coriander, which we have washed, and we'll chop it down finely. And this will add, again, another level of flavor to our dish. And when you want to chop it finely, we go back over it. So remember our sliding action. So that goes in. We'll give it a good stir. Okay, so we'll leave that to cool. And we'll start our bread dough. So to our bread dough, we're going to add in 2 eggs. Give them a quick crack. And this is just enriching our dough. Okay, in it goes one. Make sure there's no blood spots on your eggs. And two. Okay, so we put our eggs in. And to this, we're going to add in, I've got a pound of flour. Now, I've got a mixture of white, strong flour, and I've got wholemeal flour. Just pour it in. This is about a pound of flour. And that goes straight in. We're gonna add in a little bit of butter. So about a tablespoon, an ounce of butter. Okay. Got a cup of hot water because I'm going to add milk to it. So I want to keep it warm. And because my milk is cold, I've used cold water. So I've got about 3/4 of a mug. Okay, we're gonna take our dough, put it in the machine. And before we put the milk in, we're just gonna bind our egg and butter into it with our yeast. So we've got half a teaspoon of salt also going in. And you've got to make sure you put the salt above your flour so it's not mixing with the yeast, because salt will kill your yeast. Okay, let's turn it on. So just slowly incorporating the butter and the eggs in for the richness. And then slowly we're going to pour in our water and milk mixture. So in 3 goes. We've added it in slowly. And just let it bind together now. So our dough is done. We're just going to take it out of the pot, and I'm going to put a little bit of oil on my hands just so it's not sticking. So rub it in and take all that dough off. So we have a nice smooth dough, and we don't have to leave this to rise. So we're going to take our dough and roll it out into one big fish. So I want to roll it out into a big rectangle, and just be gentle with your dough. There we go. Just flatten it a bit. And roll it out into one big rectangle. So we're gonna roll this out quite thin. There we have a nice big space for our filling. So we'll pop that in. Our mixture has cooled nicely, and it looks really nice and colorful. So I'll just stuck it in the middle. Let's just move it around a little bit more, because the outside of our dough is going to come in and meet in the middle. So we're going to have to stretch it across. I'm going to take a pizza cutter. You can take a knife, and you're just going to cut strips going down at an angle about, I guess, 1.5 centimeters. It's up to you. You can do thinner strips or thicker strips. So we've got down to the middle, down to the end. And all we're going to do is fold it over. Okay, so we're going to stretch out our dough. And you can see this is going to be the head of my fish. And it's basically crossing it over to make a nice design. So keep on plaiting and crossing over as you go. Trying to keep as much of the filling inside as you can. So pinching down on the other side and across. That's how simple it is. And that's okay if some of the ends get away. Just pull them back as much as you can and squeeze them into place. We've almost got to the tail. Okay, so I'll pull that back And we'll go across, and I'm going to make a couple more cuts just to take it across the end. There we go. And then we are left with the tail, which we will cut in just a second. So to make it more realistic, we're gonna take, I've got a clove here, and we'll insert that in here to make it look like the eye of our fish. Hopefully, our fish is going to fit in our tray. So very gently picking it up, and it's okay if you have to roll it up a little bit and then unroll it in the tray. Okay, so we've got our fish into our tray, and you can see our fish is a lot bigger. It's already trying to jump out, but that's okay. So what you could do is, with the measurement, you could actually make 2 of them. So we're going to make this a centerpiece because we have a lot of things on the side. So we're going to pretend it's going to be our centerpiece. That's why it's so big. But next time you could divide the dough into 2 and make 2 smaller ones. Okay, I'm going to egg wash it just for it to get a bit of color. But that's not the only reason. I'm going to sprinkle it with sesame seeds, which are packed full of calcium. So just again, making that little bit a little bit more healthier. I think when the children see it like this, then they don't notice the brown flour, the wholemeal flour inside, because they're just, wow, look at the shape. Look what we're eating. It's so different. I've got some roasted sesame seeds. You can have white sesame seeds. There's roasted ones. You get black ones. So if you want it to make it really pretty, you could actually probably go across and use the different colors and make it more interesting for them. So use whatever you have. You can even put some onion seeds on it, the black kalonji. Those are super healthy. All right, we can sprinkle that over the top. Okay, so let's heat up our oven and get our things ready for our salad. Okay, so our fish bread is baking in the oven. We're gonna now start on our salad. And our main ingredient is kale. So we've washed it, and all you need to do is take out the big woody bits of the vein. You can see at the end, there's big bits. They're quite hard. They're not pleasant to chew on. So we'll take those bits out. And the rest, we just wanna chop down into smaller chunks. Once we get our kale in, just to get rid of a bit of the toughness that exists already in kale, all we're gonna do is give it a massage. Just like that. And that helps break down some of those hard fibers that are already in the leaves. And it softens it up in our salad. So that only took us a couple of seconds, really. Didn't take very long at all. And that is what makes all the difference to our kale salad. All right, so our kale is nice and soft now. We'll put that aside, but before we do, we're gonna add some more vegetables to it. So to that, we've got radishes, and I've hung on to one of my radishes just to show you how easy it is to just slice down in our chopper. So it didn't take long at all. The salad is so quick to whip up if you just have all your ingredients ready. We've got our radishes going in. So that's about 8-9 radishes. To that, I have 1 yellow pepper. You can use yellow, red, orange, it's up to you. I wouldn't suggest green because it's a salad. And we're trying to get all our different colors in. So in this plate, you can see I've got some cucumber, which I've peeled, and I'm just gonna dice. Cut it into maybe 4 or 5 chunks and just slice down. They don't have to be exactly the same size. Haven't sliced them. I think cubing them is a little bit nicer in this salad. We'll pop that in, along with, in here we've got 3 stalks of celery. So we've got our cucumber and our celery going in, which leaves us to cut up 2 carrots and 1 onion. And we're just gonna chop that finely. We don't want it too big, because then it It gives a lot of flavor, but it hides in the salad as well. So you get the goodness of it without it drawing attention to itself, really. So in goes our onion. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna grate it straight in like this. Get the last of our carrot in. And that's all our vegetables. So you can see the nice colors permeating in our salad already. And we give it a bit of a toss. So I'll get some tongs out and we can give it a toss. Keeping an eye on our fish, it's just about ready to come out. All we have to do is make our dressing for the salad. Okay, so we've chopped up our coriander, and here I've got some mint stalks. So to get mint off its stalk, all we have to do is, after we've washed it, dried it, pull it down, and we've got easily, instead of sitting there and picking each one at a time. Okay, so we've got our mint here, and to release the fragrance of mint, you just need to, like we squeezed and massaged our kale, you do the same thing with your mint. So I have roughly chopped the mint for our salad because it doesn't have to be tiny. It's fine if we're chewing on the mint leaves. Okay, so it's all in there. Okay, you've got to excuse the pot, but I can't find a bigger bowl. And then to add sweetness to our salad, we are going to use some cranberries and some raisins. So you can put in as much or as little as you like. And I would put roasted chopped almonds into the salad. But because my children have allergies, I use seeds. Now, these are roasted pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds. But if you don't have to worry about nut allergies, you could use seeds. And you could also use roasted almonds chopped, roasted cashew nuts and chop them up and put them in. You just have to make the dressing. So for the dressing, I have my dry ingredients, a little bit of salt. So I have half a teaspoon of salt. And you know I'm a firm believer of freshly ground pepper. So we're gonna put in half a teaspoon of freshly ground pepper. Pour the last bit in as well, because it's all the goodness is in there. And into that, I have lemon pepper here. So we're gonna put in about a teaspoon of lemon pepper goes in as well. And into that, we've got some whole grain mustard. Now, if you don't like whole grain mustard, it adds an extra depth of flavor. You can use Dijon mustard. Coleman's is quite strong, but it's up to you. I've got a good heaped teaspoon. I'm gonna do a teaspoon and a half because we've got a lot of salad there. And that's gonna add a lot of flavor to our salad. Also in there, we're gonna put honey. Obviously, we know how good this is for us. And my daughter taught me, when she went to Iran, she came back and she said, never put a metal spoon in your honey. Whenever you take honey out, always use a wooden spoon. But I'm gonna do 2 teaspoons of honey in there. That's gonna be a little bit for our sweetness. I'm gonna pour in extra virgin olive oil. And I'm sure you've noticed that I'm mixing it all straight into a jar because it's easy to mix up my dressing in this jar. To this, we're gonna add some lemon juice. And here I've squeezed 1 lemon and I've put the pulp back into it. I'm gonna pour it all in there. The main ingredient is here. We've got our sun-dried tomatoes. And I'm gonna chop them up as much as I can in the salad. It tastes really, really nice. So we're gonna use about, I think, 5 pieces of the sun-dried tomato. So I'm just gonna put that straight into the jar. I'm gonna take some of the oil that the sun-dried tomatoes have been sitting in, and I'm gonna add that in as well. Just a teaspoon to a tablespoon of that. I'm gonna give my hands a wash, and then we're gonna shake up our dressing. Dressing, best thing to make it in the morning and let it sit so the flavors can develop. We're gonna put it into our salad bowl. And just before it gets to the table, we mix it all together. because if we leave the salad in the dressing for far too long, it goes very limp and watery. So as much as possible, wait till the last minute. So we have it in a jar. It's easy to mix up our dressing. Just make sure, have a look around the sides, that nothing is stuck to the bottom. Obviously, we always have extra dressing, so it just goes in the fridge, and you can use it for something else. So on a jacket potato, the bit of filling, on a sweet potato that you've baked. Remember, put as much or as little dressing as you like. All right, so our salad's ready and our fish is baked, so let's put it all together. Okay, well there we have it. Our fish stuffed fish bread. But we're not gonna tell anybody what secret we put inside, are we? And here we have our kale salad, garnished with a radish, and we've just thrown on a little bit of pomegranate for the extra sweetness in our salad. I hope you've enjoyed cooking with me today, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Iftar. Ma salam.